Sometimes I look back at the past few years, and it seems like some sort of novel or movie. I am fully aware of how insanely stupid and spineless I look in this story. I have never told anyone because it's so humiliating, and I don't have friends to talk to. I need to write this all out. TLDR, several years of cheating, drug use. A year into my relationship, I got a message from a former coworker saying a woman had interviewed for my previous position and mentioned my name several times. She apparently described some details about my relationship, and the coworker, K, felt like I should know. I had never heard of this woman before. I immediately asked my partner about the woman, H, and he confessed to a friendship with her that included going to bars, hanging out, etc. He explained that H had always come on to him, and at times even publicly confronted him about not choosing her. He thought I wouldn't like her, and that me knowing her would cause an argument. I was truly alarmed that he had a secret friend. That's not cool. He asked her about sharing info about me at the interview, and she responded that it was my old boss initiating that convo. I asked to see the messages, and he said they were gone and he didn't know why. We had a huge argument, but he explained it away and agreed to not contact her again, saying she was toxic and dramatic. Later that year, he showed me a funny photo on his phone, and I kind of grabbed the phone to see. He got really weird and took it back, saying he felt anxious with me holding his phone. Another time, the same sort of thing happened. A text from a woman came through, and he grabbed the phone away suspiciously. I asked who she was, and he said she sold him weed.
Okay.
Several times after that, he communicated that looking at each other's phones was a deeply personal thing and something he had moral issues with. That people who do that are looking for something they'll never find, etc. Weird, but as usual, I believed him. Fast forward a year later. We broke up for a few weeks and got back together. A rocky relationship, yes. H comes into my place of work to purchase something, and I text my partner. You know, a typical, OMG, how awkward. Ran into H today. He responded saying that she was actually a good person and that we should be friends. I dig around on social media and realize that he has been liking her provocative selfies and talking to her on the phone during and after the breakup. They had become close. I did not like this because of the secrecy. He trickle-truthed me, and over the course of a few weeks, I discovered he had been at her house and helped her get a job, etc. I again ran into her at work and was polite, trying to be normal and interact like adults. After I left, my coworkers told me that she had said some truly awful things about me. I asked my partner to tell her to stop this behavior, but he would not. H then found out that we were still together and sent him a scathing message, accusing him of abandoning her, calling me a terrible person, etc. He defended me and blocked her. This all seemed like strange drama to me. I wasn't as concerned with her as I was about his lying and hiding his interactions with her. But H was merely foreshadowing a much darker situation. A few months later, I had a feeling that something was off. I had never looked up my partner's Reddit handle or even known what it was. He had always told me that a person's Reddit handle was a very private thing and that partners do not typically share theirs. I wasn't into snooping and didn't really think about it much. At some point I was at work, bored. I decided to check out his Reddit handle because he had casually mentioned it. What I found were dozens and dozens of posts and comments, mostly on drug/hookup sites. I didn't even know that was a thing, to seek someone to do drugs with and hook up. The posts were alarming. They seemed reckless, dangerous, and mentioned meth. I immediately asked him what this was. This is where I start being stupid. He knew that I believed every excuse he gave me, always. He acted shocked and told me his account had been hacked and that he hadn't made those posts. He said it was a duplicate account that had copied his account and added those posts, and that he was contacting Reddit right away to fix this. He said he noticed some fraudulent charges on his bank account at the same time the posts were made, and obviously this was an attempt to steal his identity. He seemed distraught, and I believed him. The Reddit handle was deleted immediately, presumably because it had been identified as fake. I managed to get 2 blurry screenshots before everything was gone. Several months later, during a strange argument, he asked if I truly wanted to be with him, even though he had struggled with drinking in the past. He said, "You know I'm an addict, right?" I said I didn't know much about that. He seemed to have stopped drinking some time ago, etc. He confessed that only during the time of our breakup, a guy he knew had offered him meth. He loved it, used it for a month, then stopped. He had made those posts on Reddit during that month. I grilled him, but he insisted that it was something he did a few times when he was struggling with our breakup. He never did it again, etc. And that he wasn't cheating because he had just tried to fool around but hadn't met anyone in person. I again believed him. I even felt compassion for him. He gained my trust years before and was slowly escalating his lies, and I believed him every time. In January of 2022, I asked him about a couple of women he seemed to interact with a lot on Instagram, but I'd never heard of. In particular, S. He said he met S years ago through a friend and didn't really know her. He wouldn't budge on this position. I mentioned H and the distrust I had. He told me I was unhinged and was going to go crazy searching for something that wasn't there. Over the next few months, we became more distant. We weren't in great shape relationship-wise, and since he lived an hour away, we didn't spend much time together during the week. It was often hard to reach him. He didn't often answer calls and texts. In April of 2022, I had surgery after finding out I had lots of cells that were on the verge of becoming cancer. He stayed with me and drove me there, took me home. Everything a partner would do in that situation. Before the surgery, he was very emotional, crying in the waiting room and saying he was so afraid to lose me. It was a quick surgery, and I told him it wasn't a big deal. Over the next few days, he kept going to the gas station and even went to a bar alone the day after the surgery, which was strange. He seemed very distracted. We spent a weekend away at the end of April, and a few days later I was having a bad day at work. An enormous, expensive bouquet was delivered to my office with a very kind and romantic note. I was elated and felt so special. Another time I used his phone to make a call. I saw his dick pics and photos of a meth pipe. He said they were from some time ago and that he likes to take photos of his own penis so he can fantasize about being sent dick pics. The stories this man told me, few. The next week, I got a friend request on Instagram from a woman named A. I immediately knew what was about to happen. She sent me a paragraph saying she had been seeing him, had sex a few times, but something didn't seem right. He had told her he was single, but she didn't believe him. I sent him the screenshot, called him, and demanded he explain. He said yes, he felt distant from me and unloved, and had joined Tinder for one day, talked to her, and spent some time with her only once. I pushed hard for more info, and he sent me a cropped screenshot. I pushed more. I was used to him trickle-truthing at this point. I learned that he had been sexting her, been to her apartment, and that she had come to his house to hook up too. I told him to come to my house the next day so he could finally come clean. I was devastated and on the verge of a nervous breakdown over this. We ended up sitting in my car yelling at each other until he finally let me see his phone. It was filled with women I'd never heard of, sending him nude photos, sexting, making plans to meet. He took the phone from me and tried to smash it on the ground. At this point, we were just shouting at each other, and I felt like my entire life had just exploded. He screamed, "I'm on speed again." That's why. He told me that. In January of 2022, he had felt lonely and distant from me and was convinced I didn't love him. He used Tinder periodically. He had gone to a bar, and a woman named Jenna had flirted with him and they made out. He had her over to his house and performed oral sex on her. She sent him dozens of pretty violent photos of herself and her wife engaging in BDSM stuff. To each their own, but it was pretty intense. He also claimed to have met a woman named Angie on FetLife, gone to her apartment and only made out. He sent her messages saying he couldn't wait to make her come. He met A on Tinder and hooked up with her and led her to believe they were dating. He had been using meth, he said, since the new year. The meth made him uncontrollably horny, he explained, and he couldn't resist. He also made a lot of posts and comments on Reddit about barely legal celebs, fantasizing about them. He told me he liked to chat to other men about jerking off to 18-year-old celebrities. He got a new phone/number, and I asked him to block every drug dealer and every person who was a secret friend. He told me he did. I found messages from S, the person he hardly knew, professing to love him deeply. She visited his house in the middle of the night from a different city. I found text from a woman I knew, E, sending him heart emojis and him responding telling her she is the most wonderful person he knows. He claimed they were just friends and neighbors and that they would hang out on her porch. And again, he was too afraid to tell me because I would be upset. He promised tearfully to never interact with any of these women again, that he was done with drugs, that he just wanted me, and that he needed treatment for addiction. I asked his family for support in the treatment, and they refused. We were supposed to attend a friend's wedding, and I told the bride we would not be attending because he had cheated on me and used drugs. I started receiving countless messages from his guy friends asking if he was okay. Not a single one asking if I was okay. At one point, I squeezed out of him that he had an older woman meth dealer, Ashley, with whom he had become close. He would go to her hotel room and feel protective of her because there were men in there that only wanted drugs from her. He gave her rides, lots of money. He bought her hotel rooms. He had her over to his house so she could shower. I don't believe this. I think they did drugs together and hooked up. He said she needed help and a friend because she had had a hard life. They spent lots of time talking and opening up to one another. Later, I asked for more info, and he said Ashley and another dealer, Shaq, had convinced him to be part of a deal, and he drove them to a location, and all of them were robbed at gunpoint. He did not seem to realize that they were using him. He said I had no idea how scared and alone he had been feeling throughout all this, and that addiction was serious. A few weeks later, I found late-night calls from S. He said she was innocent, and though he had died, and he couldn't bear to leave her feeling that way. At first, I actually called the number to see who it was. I asked her how she knew my partner, and she laughed at me. He came home and said, "I am going to fucking kill you," in response to me calling her. He punched a hole in my bedroom wall. Once things had calmed down, he made more promises to me, that he would stop all secret behavior and lies, go to therapy, be accountable, etc. About 1 month later, I saw his laptop on the bed and took a look. I found messages that detailed a woman who lived a few blocks from me who was selling him drugs. Another big fight, truthing. I learned that each time he visited me, he'd stop there to buy Adderall, and that he was on Adderall most of the time. A few weeks after that, he was riding his bike, and I found messages to some sort of meth dealer named Miss Annie, or something similar. He was arranging a weekend alone at his house an hour away, and wanting to buy meth. She sent him a photo of the meth, and he said, "OMG, you are my queen among queens." That hurt so much. Throughout this ordeal, he had gone to great lengths to protect every single woman involved except me. He was willing to hurt me, but no one else. Recently, he was posted on one of those "Are we dating the same guy?" sites, and so many women talked about his shady behavior. I got him to confess to going on dates for the prior 2 years. He said living in a different city emboldened him. He loved to make out while high. He claims to not remember any specifics. At this point, I do not believe most of his stories, that he never had penetrative sex with anyone else, that his secret close female friends were only platonic, that he kept certain boundaries, etc. It's all lies. Looking back, I can't believe that all of this was going on for so long and that I didn't know.